Join us for a heartwarming tale of love, loss, and new beginnings. Follow Hannah Cole as she rebuilds her life at Everbrook Farm after losing her family's land and discovers unexpected connections with a mysterious farmhand named Luke. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. Hannah Cole stood at the entrance of Everbrook Farm with nothing but a worn duffel bag and determination in her eyes. The large wooden sign hanging above the gate swayed gently in the summer breeze, a silent welcome to her new beginning. At 25, Hannah had already endured more than most people twice her age. The last 3 years had been brutal, watching her father slowly fade away from cancer, while their family farm drowned in medical debt. "This is it," she whispered to herself, wiping sweat from her brow. The midday sun beat down on her shoulders as she walked up the dusty path toward the main office. Inside, a middle-aged woman with graying hair looked up from her desk. "You must be Hannah Cole, our new seasonal hand." "Yes, ma'am." Hannah straightened her posture, reporting for work. Martha, the farm's office manager, gave her a warm smile. "We're glad to have you. Not many city girls willing to get their hands dirty these days." "I'm no city girl," Hannah replied. "I grew up on a farm until we lost it. This isn't new to me, just a chance to start over." Martha nodded with respect. "Well, you'll be staying in the women's dormitory. It's basic, but clean. Meals are served in the communal dining hall. You'll start tomorrow at 5 a.m. sharp." Hannah nodded. 5 a.m. was actually sleeping in compared to her old routine. "I'll be ready." After being shown to her small room, which contained just a bed, a dresser, and a small desk, Hannah unpacked her few belongings. She placed her father's worn pocket watch on the nightstand, the only thing of value she had left from him. "I'm going to make this work, Dad," she said, touching the watch face gently. "Just like you taught me." The sound of laughter outside drew her attention. Through the window, she saw a group of workers walking toward the dining hall. Among them was a tall man with broad shoulders and sun-tanned skin. Unlike the others who seemed tired from the day's work, he moved with energy, as if the labor had invigorated rather than exhausted him. At dinner, Hannah sat alone, observing the other workers. Most kept to themselves, too tired for conversation. The tall man she'd seen earlier entered the hall and grabbed a tray. To her surprise, he walked directly to her table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked with a slight smile. His eyes were a warm brown, kind but somehow guarded. "Go ahead," Hannah replied, making room. "I'm Luke," he said, extending a hand covered in calluses. "Been working here going on 5 years now." Hannah shook his hand. "Hannah Cole. Just started today." Luke nodded. "First day can be overwhelming. This place is huge." "How many acres?" Hannah asked, genuinely curious. "Over 2,000. One of the most profitable farms in the state." There was pride in his voice, as if he was speaking of his own accomplishment. Hannah raised an eyebrow. "You sound pretty invested for a farmhand." Luke's expression changed slightly. Then he smiled. "I guess I am." When you work somewhere long enough, you start to care about it. Their conversation flowed easily as they ate. Luke explained the farm's daily operations, the crops they grew, and the livestock they raised. Hannah found herself relaxing for the first time in months. There was something about Luke that put her at ease, probably because he didn't seem to be putting on airs. He was just a hard-working man, like her father had been. "So, what brought you to Everbrook?" Luke asked as they finished their meal. Hannah hesitated, then decided honesty was the best approach. "My father died last year. Cancer. We lost our farm to medical debt. I needed work, and I know farming. It seemed like the right fit." Luke's eyes softened. "I'm sorry about your father." "Thank you." Hannah looked down at her empty plate. "He was a good man. Taught me everything I know about working the land." "Well, those skills will serve you well here," Luke said. "Actually, I'm supposed to show the new hands around tomorrow. Looks like that'll be you." The next morning, Hannah was up before her alarm. She dressed quickly in her work clothes and headed to the dining hall for breakfast. Luke was already there, drinking coffee at the same table they'd shared the night. Before morning, he greeted her. "Ready for your first day?" Hannah nodded, surprised at how rested she felt. "More than ready." After a quick breakfast, Luke led her outside where a tractor waited. "Ever drive one of these?" he asked. "Our farm was smaller. We had an older model, but the basics are the same, right? Luke smiled. Right. Hop on, I'll show you. Hannah climbed onto the tractor and Luke stood beside her, explaining the controls. He was patient, never making her feel inadequate when she asked questions. By mid-morning, she was driving confidently through the fields. You're a natural, Luke commented as she parked the tractor for their water break. Most new hands take days to get comfortable with the equipment. Like I said, not my first rodeo, Hannah replied, taking a long drink from her water bottle. Luke leaned against the tractor. So tell me about your farm. What did you grow? Mostly corn and soybeans, some wheat. Nothing fancy, but it was enough. Hannah's voice grew softer. It was in our family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it from nothing, then my father took over. It was supposed to be mine someday. And now? Hannah shrugged, trying to hide the pain. And now I'm here. Life goes on, right? Luke studied her face for a moment. Your father would be proud, you know. Not everyone can pick themselves up after losing everything. I haven't exactly picked myself up. I'm just surviving. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a person can do, Luke replied. Their eyes met, and Hannah felt a strange connection with this quiet farmhand who seemed to understand loss in a way most people didn't. The first week passed quickly. Hannah's body ached from the physical labor, but it was a good kind of pain, the kind that meant progress. She found herself looking forward to the moments when Luke would teach her something new or share a meal with her. Unlike the other workers, who kept to themselves, Luke seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. One evening, as they sat on a bench outside the dormitories, watching the sunset paint the fields gold, Luke asked, "Do you miss it?" "Your old life." Hannah considered the question. "I miss my father. I miss our land." She paused. "But there's something peaceful about being here. No responsibilities except the work in front of me. No decisions that could ruin everything if I choose wrong." "You're afraid of making the wrong choice?" Luke asked, "aren't you?" "My father made one bad decision, took out a loan with the wrong terms when crop prices were high. Then they fell and he couldn't make the payments. Then he got sick." Hannah shook her head. "One decision. That's all it took to lose generations of work." Luke was quiet for a moment. "I understand that fear, but sometimes the biggest risk is taking no risk at all," says the man who's been working the same job for 5 years, Hannah teased. A strange expression crossed Luke's face. Something between amusement and discomfort. "Touche, but maybe I'm just waiting for the right reason to change." As they continued talking, Hannah noticed a sleek black car pulling up to the main house. A woman in an expensive-looking suit emerged, her heels inappropriate for the gravel driveway. Even from a distance, Hannah could see her irritation as she carefully made her way to the front door. "Who's that?" Hannah asked. Luke's entire demeanor changed. His jaw tightened and his shoulders tensed. "Victoria Everbrook, the owner's sister." "Does she work here too?" Luke let out a humorless laugh. "No, Victoria wouldn't be caught dead actually working this land. She just shows up occasionally to make demands." "Demands?" "She wants her brother to sell the farm to developers, says they could make millions turning this into luxury homes or a resort." The disgust in Luke's voice was evident. Hannah frowned. "That's terrible. All this beautiful farmland, all these jobs, gone for what? More mansions nobody needs?" Luke looked at her with newfound respect. "Exactly. But some people only see dollar signs, not value." As weeks passed, Hannah settled into life at Everbrook Farm. The work was hard but fulfilling. She found herself watching Luke when he thought no one was looking. The way he inspected the crops with such care, how he knew every worker by name, how he sometimes walked the property line at dawn as if checking on a beloved friend. One day, while they were repairing a fence in the north pasture, Hannah asked, "Why do you care so much about this place, Luke? It's just a job." Luke hammered. A post with more force than necessary. "Is that what you thought about your family farm, that it was just a job? That was different. It was ours." "And what makes something yours?" Luke challenged. "A piece of paper? Or is it the sweat you pour into it, the care you give it, the way you learn its moods and seasons?" Hannah was taken aback by his intensity. "I didn't mean to offend you." Luke's expression softened. You didn't. I just believe that ownership is about more than legal documents. It's about connection. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. Luke's words kept replaying in her mind. There was something about the way he spoke about the farm, with passion, with vision. It reminded her of how her father used to talk about their land. The next morning, Hannah was assigned to help with the harvest planning. To her surprise, she was directed to the main house rather than the office where the workers usually received. Their assignments, there must be a mistake, she told Martha. I'm supposed to be with the field team. No mistake, Martha replied. Mr. Evans wants you to help with the yield projections. Said you have experience with crop rotation and planning from your family farm. Hannah was confused. But I never told Mr. Evans about my family farm. I've never even met him. Martha looked equally puzzled. Well, someone must have mentioned it. Anyway, you're to go to the main house. The housekeeper will show you to the study. As Hannah approached the imposing farmhouse, she felt distinctly out of place in her work clothes and boots. The housekeeper, a kind-faced older woman named Eleanor, met her at the door. Come in, dear, I'll show you where to go. Hannah followed Eleanor through the house, trying not to gawk at the beautiful furnishings. It wasn't ostentatious, but everything was of obvious quality. Handcrafted wooden furniture, tasteful artwork depicting rural scenes, comfortable-looking sofas and chairs. This is the study, Eleanor said, opening a heavy wooden door. Mr. Evans said you should make yourself comfortable. He'll be with you shortly. Hannah entered the room and immediately froze. There, covering an entire wall, were photographs. Framed photographs of Luke. Except he wasn't Luke the farmhand in these pictures. He wore tailored suits and stood beside important-looking people. In one photo, he was cutting a ribbon in front of a new barn. In another, he was accepting an award for agricultural innovation, and beneath the largest photograph was a brass plaque that read, Lucas James Everbrook, owner and founder of Everbrook Farm. Hannah's heart pounded in her chest. Luke wasn't a farmhand. He was Lucas Everbrook, the owner of the entire operation, the man who signed her paychecks, the man who had been lying to her from the moment they met. She was still standing there trying to process this betrayal when the door opened behind her. I can explain, said a voice she knew all too well. Hannah turned slowly to face Luke. No. Lucas, who stood in the doorway holding a bouquet of wildflowers. The same wildflowers she had once mentioned were her favorites when they had walked the eastern fields together. You lied, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. All this time. You watched me pour myself into this land, and you never told me it was yours. Lucas took a step forward, his eyes pleading. Hannah, please listen. But before he could continue, another voice interrupted. Well, well, what a touching scene. Victoria Everbrook stood in the hallway, a cold smile on her perfectly made-up face. In her hand, she held a thick document. You'd better say goodbye to the fields, she said, looking directly at Hannah. The sale goes through in 2 days. Hannah looked back at Lucas, whose face had gone pale. Is that true? She asked. Are you selling the farm? The silence that followed was deafening. Is that true? Hannah repeated, her voice stronger now. Are you selling the farm? Lucas glared at his sister. Victoria, this isn't the time. Oh, I think it's the perfect time, Victoria replied, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor as she stepped into the study. Your little charade is over, Lucas. It's time to face reality. Lucas turned back to Hannah, his eyes pleading. I'm not selling the farm, that's what Victoria wants, but I haven't agreed to anything. Hannah shook her head, trying to make sense of everything. I don't understand. Why would you pretend to be a farmhand? Why lie to everyone and to me? Victoria laughed, a cold sound that filled the room. My brother has always had a flair for the dramatic. He likes to test people, see if they treat him differently when they think he's just a common laborer instead of a wealthy landowner. That's not it, Lucas said firmly. Or at least, that's not all of it. Hannah crossed her arms. Then explain it to me. The truth this time. Lucas set the wildflowers down on his desk and ran a hand through his hair. When my father died 5 years ago, I inherited all this. I had worked alongside him my whole life, but suddenly everyone treated me differently. Workers who'd known me for years started calling me sir and wouldn't look me in the eye. Business associates who'd never given me the time of day were suddenly my best friends. Poor little rich boy, Victoria muttered. Lucas ignored her. I started working alongside the seasonal hands to stay connected to the actual work of the farm. To remember what matters, and yes, to see who treats people with respect, regardless of their position. His eyes met Hannah's. Like you do. Hannah's chest tightened with conflicting emotions, anger at being deceived but understanding of why he'd done it. You should have told me, she said quietly. I was going to. After the harvest festival, Lucas took a step toward her. I didn't expect to care about what you thought of me. I didn't expect you. Victoria made a dismissive noise. How touching. But none of this matters now. The board meeting is set for Friday. The vote will go through, and Everbrook Farm will finally fulfill its true potential as a luxury resort and residential community. Lucas turned to his sister. The board can't approve a sale without my majority vote, and I'm not selling. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. About that, you might want to review grandfather's trust provisions again. Your control was conditional on marriage by your 30th birthday, which was last month. The family attorney has confirmed that control now reverts to the board, and I've been very busy securing their votes. The color drained from Lucas's face. That's impossible. Dad changed those provisions when he took over. He intended to, Victoria corrected, but he never actually filed the paperwork. Too busy playing farmer with you, I suppose. Such a shame. Hannah looked between them, feeling like an intruder in a private family war. I should go, she said, moving toward the door. Hannah, wait, Lucas called after her. She paused, but didn't. Turn around. I need some time to think. Without waiting for his response, Hannah left the main house and walked quickly toward the workers' dormitory. Her mind was reeling. Lucas had lied about who he was from the moment they met. Yet in every other way, he had been honest. His love for the land, his work ethic, his kindness toward the workers, those things couldn't be faked. Back in her small room, Hannah sat on the edge of her bed and picked up her father's pocket watch. What would he have done in this situation? Probably told her to judge a man by his actions, not his title, but wasn't lying an action too? A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Hannah? It's Martha. Can I come in? Hannah opened the door to find the office manager looking concerned. I heard what happened, Martha said, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. News travels fast around here. Did you know? Hannah asked. That Luke was really Lucas Everbrook? Martha nodded. Most of the permanent staff know. It started as a way for him to stay connected to the actual work, but it became something more over time. A way for him to find peace, I think. And what about Victoria's claims? About the farm being sold? Martha's face darkened. Victoria has been trying to get her hands on this property for years. Their grandfather made his fortune in real estate development, and she takes after him. Sees land only in terms of what it can be built on, not what it can grow. But is what she said true about Lucas losing control? I don't know the legal details, Martha admitted. But I know Lucas won't give up without a fight. This land means everything to him. After Martha left, Hannah tried to focus on her work. But her mind kept returning to Lucas. The hurt of his deception competed with understanding why he'd done it. By evening, she still hadn't reached any conclusions. In the dining hall, conversations hushed when she entered. Everyone was staring, whispering. Word had clearly spread about her connection to the boss and his deception. Hannah grabbed a tray and sat alone, keeping her eyes on her food. To her surprise, Eleanor, the housekeeper from the main house, sat down across from her. Don't let them bother you, the older woman said kindly. People always talk, especially when they don't understand. I'm not sure I understand either, Hannah replied. Eleanor studied her face. May I speak frankly? Hannah nodded. I've worked for the Everbrook family for 30 years. I watched Lucas grow up. When his father died, something in him changed. Richard Everbrook was a good man who treated everyone with respect, regardless of their position. Lucas wanted to honor that legacy, but he also wanted to know who he could trust. By lying to them? Hannah asked. Eleanor shook her head. By meeting them as equals. Do you know how many people have tried to get close to Lucas because of his wealth? How many women have pursued him not for who he is, but for what he has? Hannah hadn't considered that aspect. I still wish he'd told me the truth. He was going to, Eleanor assured her. After the harvest festival, it's his favorite time of year, when all the hard work pays off. He wanted to share that with you. As himself, not just as Luke the farmhand. And now the farm might be sold anyway, Hannah said. That's what I came to talk to you about. Eleanor lowered her voice. Lucas is meeting with his lawyers tonight. There may be a way to stop Victoria, but he needs support. He asked me to give you this. She handed Hannah a folded note. After Eleanor left, Hannah opened the note with trembling fingers. Hannah, I understand if you never want to speak to me. Again, but please hear me out. Not for my sake, but for Everbrook's. Meet me at the Old Oak by the East Field at 8 if you're willing. Lucas, Hannah checked her watch. It was already 7:45. She had a decision to make. The old oak tree stood majestically against the darkening sky, its massive branches reaching toward the stars that were just beginning to appear. Hannah approached slowly, seeing Lucas's silhouette. As he paced beneath the tree, he turned when he heard her footsteps, hope and uncertainty battling in his expression. You came, he said softly. I came for the farm, Hannah clarified, and for the people who work here. Their jobs are at stake. Lucas nodded. Thank you. I know I don't deserve your help after lying to you. No, you don't, Hannah agreed. But that doesn't mean I'll stand by while Victoria destroys everything your father built, everything you've maintained. My lawyers think there's a way, Lucas explained. The trust provisions Victoria mentioned do exist, but there's a clause she's overlooking. Control reverts to the board only if I'm unmarried and have no clear successor for the farm operations. And do you have a successor? Hannah asked. Lucas looked uncomfortable. Not officially, but my father added notes to his will stating his intention to name our farm manager, Henry, as operational successor if anything happened to me. The lawyers think we can use that to challenge Victoria's claim. Where is Henry now? Shouldn't he be part of this conversation? Henry retired 3 months ago, moved to Florida to be near his grandkids. Lucas sighed. That's part of why Victoria's making her move now. The farm is vulnerable without a clear second in command. Hannah processed this information. So what's the plan? We need to convince the board that the farm is more valuable as agricultural land than as a development. Victoria's been working on them for months, but most of them have never even visited Everbrook. They see spreadsheets, not the reality of what happens here. The Harvest Festival, Hannah said suddenly. It's in 3 days. You could invite the board members, show them everything the farm produces, let them meet the workers, help them understand what would be lost. Lucas's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. We could turn it into a proper showcase of everything Everbrook does for the community. Local restaurants that buy our produce, families that depend on the farm for employment, the sustainable farming practices we've developed. For the first time since discovering his true identity, Hannah felt a spark of their old connection. Lucas's passion for the farm was real. That part hadn't been a lie. I'll help, she said, but I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because no one should lose their land if there's a way to save it. Lucas nodded solemnly. I understand. Thank you, Hannah. The next morning, the farm was abuzz with activity. Lucas had called an all-hands meeting to explain the situation and his plan to save Everbrook. To Hannah's surprise, he didn't hide his earlier deception. Many of you know me as Luke, he told the assembled workers. I've worked alongside you, eaten with you, faced the same challenges you have. I did this not to spy or to deceive, but to stay connected to the heart of this farm, its people, and its daily operations. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Now Everbrook faces its greatest challenge. My sister wants to sell this land to developers. The board will vote in 3 days. Before they do, I want to show them what this farm really is, not just numbers on a balance sheet, but a living, thriving community that feeds thousands of people and provides honest work to hundreds more. One of the older workers, Jim, spoke up. What do you need us to do, boss? Can't say I wasn't surprised to learn you were mopping floors when you own the place, but I respect a man who's not afraid to get his hands dirty. A chorus of agreement followed. Whatever resentment there might have been about Lucas's dual identity was outweighed by concern for the farm's future. The Harvest Festival is our chance to show the board what Everbrook truly is, Lucas continued. I need every department to prepare a demonstration of their work. Show the board members what expertise goes into everything we do here. The workers dispersed with a new sense of purpose. Hannah found herself appointed to the organizing committee, working directly with Lucas to coordinate the festival activities. Despite her lingering hurt over his deception, she couldn't deny they worked well together. As they reviewed the festival layout in his office that afternoon, Lucas said, "I want to explain something to you about why I didn't tell you who I was." Hannah looked up from the map they were studying. "I'm listening. When we first met, it was no different than with any new worker. I didn't tell you because I don't tell most people." He paused. "But then we started talking, really talking, about your father, your farm, your dreams, and I found myself wanting to tell you everything." "So why didn't you?" Lucas met her eyes. "Because for the first time in 5 years, someone was seeing me, just me. Not the Everbrook heir, not the wealthy farm owner, just Lucas, a man who loves this land as much as you loved your family farm. I was afraid if I told you the truth, that would change. You didn't give me the chance to prove otherwise," Hannah said. "You're right. I should have trusted you with the truth." Lucas's phone buzzed with a message. His expression darkened as he read it. "Victoria's moved up the board meeting. It's now scheduled for the morning after the festival, not 2 days later. Can she do that?" "As acting chair of the board, yes." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "We have even less time than we thought." "Then we'd better make it count," Hannah said, returning to the festival plans with renewed determination. That evening, as Hannah walked back to her dormitory, she was startled to find Victoria waiting for her. "Ms. Cole," Victoria said smoothly. "Might I have a word?" Hannah tensed but nodded. "I'll be direct. My brother seems to value your opinion, and you clearly have influence with the workers. I'm prepared to make it worth your while if you convince Lucas that selling is the best option." "Worth my while," Hannah repeated incredulously. Victoria opened her designer purse and removed a checkbook. "Name your price. Everyone has one." Hannah felt her temper flare. "I lost my family farm because people like you see land only as dollar signs. I'm not interested in your money, Ms. Everbrook." "Don't be naive," Victoria said, her voice hardening. "This farm will be sold one way or another. You can either profit from it or watch from the sidelines. The choice is yours." Hannah stepped closer to Victoria, her voice low but firm. "My father taught me that some things have value beyond price. Integrity is one of them. Your brother understands that even if you don't." Victoria's perfectly made-up face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this. When the farm is sold and you're looking for work elsewhere, remember you had a chance." As Victoria stalked away, Hannah noticed Lucas standing in the shadows of the barn. His expression told her he'd heard everything. "Thank you," he said simply. When Victoria was out of earshot, "I meant what I said," Hannah replied. "Some things shouldn't be for sale." Lucas's eyes held hers. "I know." For a moment, they stood in silence under the vast, starry sky, the future of Everbrook hanging in the balance between them. The day before the Harvest Festival dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the preparations. The entire farm was in motion, with workers setting up booths, organizing displays of produce, and preparing equipment demonstrations. Hannah had barely slept, going over the schedule again and again, determined that everything would be perfect. Lucas was everywhere at once, helping raise the main tent, checking the sound system, speaking with the local vendors who were coming to showcase products made with Everbrook produce. He had shed his farmhand persona completely now, openly taking charge as the owner, but still wearing his familiar work clothes rather than business attire. "The first board members arrive this evening," he told Hannah as they inspected the festival grounds. "I've arranged for them to stay at the guest cottages by the lake. Martha will give them a short tour, but the real showcase is tomorrow." "How many are coming?" Hannah asked, clipboard in hand. 5 out of the 7 confirmed. The other 2 are joining by video for the vote. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck. "We need to convince at least 3 of them to vote with me against the sale." Hannah nodded. "Do we know which way they're leaning?" 2 are firmly in Victoria's camp, old friends of my grandfather who believe land is only valuable when it's developed. 1 is solidly with me, my father's college roommate who understands the farm's importance. The other 4 could go either way. Then those 4 are our targets, Hannah said decisively. We need to make personal connections with each of them. Find out what matters to them and show them how Everbrook addresses those concerns. Lucas smiled at her. You'd have made a great farm owner, Hannah. The comment stung, reminding her of all she'd lost. I was supposed to be one, she replied quietly. Lucas's expression softened. I'm sorry. That was thoughtless of me. It's fine. Hannah checked her watch. I need to help the dairy team set up their cheese-making demonstration. As she walked away, Hannah fought back the complicated emotions Lucas stirred in her. Yes, he had lied about his identity, but in the days since the truth had come out, he had shown nothing but dedication to saving the farm and protecting the workers' jobs. It was hard to stay angry with a man who clearly cared so deeply about the same things she did. By evening, the festival grounds were ready. Colorful banners hung between poles, booths were stocked with produce and farm products, and the stage was set for tomorrow's presentations. Hannah was checking the final details when Martha approached. The board members have arrived, she said. Lucas is greeting them at the main house. He asked if you'd join them for dinner. Hannah hesitated. I'm not sure that's appropriate. I'm just a seasonal worker. Martha gave her a knowing look. You're a bit more than that, at least to Lucas. Besides, he wants them to hear from someone who actually works the land. Reluctantly, Hannah agreed. She rushed to her room to change out of her work clothes, but realized she had nothing suitable for dinner with board members. The best she could manage was a clean pair of jeans and her least worn shirt. As she approached the main house, Hannah saw several expensive cars parked in the circular driveway. Her stomach clenched with nerves. These wealthy business people would decide Everbrook's fate, and she was supposed to help convince them. Eleanor opened the door before Hannah could knock. They're in the dining room, she whispered. Don't let them intimidate you. Remember, you know more about actual farming than any of them. The Everbrook dining room was impressive, with a long oak table that could seat 20. Currently it held Lucas at one end, Victoria at the other, and 5 older men and women, the board members, in between. All conversation stopped when Hannah entered. Lucas stood immediately. Everyone, this is Hannah Cole, one of our most knowledgeable farmhands. Hannah grew up on a family farm before joining us at Everbrook. She'll be giving you the workers' perspective on our operations tomorrow. Victoria's smile was tight. How quaint. I wasn't aware the staff would be joining us for dinner. Ms. Cole is here at my invitation, Lucas said firmly, as are the other department heads who will be arriving shortly. To Hannah's relief, Martha, Jim from livestock and 3 other senior workers entered the dining room. Lucas had intentionally created a buffer so she wouldn't be the only non-board member present. During dinner, Hannah found herself seated next to a distinguished-looking man in his 60s who introduced himself as Walter Prescott. Lucas tells me you come from a farming background, Walter said as they ate. Yes, my family had a farm for 3 generations before we lost it, Hannah replied honestly. Walter looked genuinely interested. May I ask what happened? Hannah hesitated, then decided the truth might help their cause. Medical debt. My father got cancer. We had insurance, but not enough. We took out loans using the farm as collateral, thinking we could manage the payments. Then crop prices fell and, she shrugged. You can guess the rest. Walter was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry to hear that. It's a common story these days. Unfortunately, small farms are struggling everywhere, which is why operations like Everbrook are so important, Hannah said. This farm employs over 200 people year-round, plus seasonal workers like me. It produces food for the entire region. If it becomes a resort, all of that is lost. Walter studied her. You speak quite passionately for someone who's only been here a few months. Good land is good land, Hannah said simply. I recognize what the Everbrooks have built here. It would be a shame to see it paved over for vacation homes. Down the table, Victoria was speaking loudly about property values and investment returns. 2 of the board members were nodding along enthusiastically. After dinner, Lucas guided the group to the back patio for coffee. The night was clear, with stars scattered across the sky and the scent of late summer flowers in the air. In the distance, the festival grounds were illuminated with strings of lights, creating a magical effect. "Tomorrow you'll see what Everbrook is really about," Lucas told the board members. "Not just numbers on a balance sheet, but real food, real people, and real livelihoods." "Numbers matter, Lucas," said one of the women, whom Hannah had learned. Was Elizabeth Chen, a banker. "Victoria's proposal projects a 300% return on investment if the land is developed." "And what's the return on feeding families for generations?" Lucas challenged. "What's the return on preserving farmland instead of covering it with concrete? Some values can't be calculated with a spreadsheet." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Always the idealist, little brother. Business requires pragmatism. Our father managed to be both pragmatic and principled," Lucas replied. "That's the legacy I'm trying to preserve." The mention of their father created an uncomfortable silence. Hannah sensed there was more to that story than she knew. As the evening wound down, Lucas walked Hannah back to the workers' dormitory. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said. "I think you made an impression on Walter." "I hope so," Hannah sighed. "Victoria is very convincing when she talks about money." "Money is all she cares about," Lucas said, an edge of bitterness in his voice. "She never understood why Dad chose this life when we could have been living in luxury in the city." "Why did he?" Hannah asked. "Choose farming, I mean." Lucas smiled slightly. "He said it was the only job where you create something real every day. Food that sustains people. Land that sustains itself when properly cared for. Community that sustains the spirit." He looked up at the stars. "I used to think that was just poetic talk until I started working the fields myself." They walked in comfortable silence until they reached her door. "The festival starts at 9 tomorrow," Lucas said, "but I'd like you to join the board tour." "At 8 if you're willing." "I'll be there," Hannah promised. As Lucas turned to leave, he hesitated. "Hannah, whatever happens tomorrow with the board with Everbrook, I want you to know that meeting you has changed me, for the better." Before she could respond, he was walking away, his silhouette fading into the darkness. Hannah barely slept. That night, her mind racing with thoughts of the farm, the board vote, and most confusingly Lucas. Despite her best efforts to maintain distance since learning of his deception, she couldn't deny the connection between them. It wasn't just physical attraction, though there was certainly that, but a shared understanding of what the land meant, what farming meant. Lucas might have lied about his name and position, but he had never lied about his passion for Everbrook. Morning came all too quickly. Hannah dressed carefully in her cleanest work clothes and made her way to the main house where the board members were gathering for breakfast before their tour. Lucas looked tired but determined as he outlined the day's agenda. "We'll start with the sustainable irrigation system, then visit the organic vegetable fields, the dairy operation, and finally the processing facilities. After lunch, the festival opens to the public, and you'll see how Everbrook connects with the wider community." The tour began well. Walter Prescott seemed genuinely interested in the water conservation methods Lucas had implemented. Elizabeth Chen asked thoughtful questions about yield improvements. Even Victoria's allies appeared impressed by the scale and efficiency of the operation. At the dairy barn, they watched a cheese-making demonstration that included samples of Everbrook's award-winning products. Hannah noticed Lucas relaxing slightly as the board members responded positively. "Our restaurant partners will be showcasing meals made with our produce at the festival," Lucas explained as they walked toward the processing center. "Everbrook supplies over 30 restaurants and markets in the region, plus 3 school districts. The social impact is commendable," Elizabeth Chen acknowledged. "But Victoria's proposal includes substantial charitable donations that could have even greater community benefit." "With respect, Ms. Chen," Hannah interjected, "donations can't replace jobs. The people who work here support families, pay taxes, and contribute to the local economy. That impact is ongoing, not a one-time gesture." Elizabeth looked thoughtful at this response. As the morning progressed, Hannah felt cautiously optimistic. At least some of the board members seemed to be considering Lucas's perspective, but Victoria wasn't giving up easily. At every stop, she highlighted the potential value of the land for development. emphasizing the financial return that would benefit the Everbrook family trust. By lunchtime, the festival was in full swing. Local families poured in to enjoy the displays, food, and activities. Children raced between booths while their parents sampled produce and watched demonstrations. The atmosphere was joyful, a celebration of the harvest and the community Everbrook had nurtured. Lucas gathered the board members on a small viewing platform where they could see the entire festival grounds. "This is Everbrook," he said, gesturing to the scene before them. "Not just land and crops, but people. Families who've worked here for generations. Customers who trust the food we grow. Children who are learning where their meals come from." His voice grew passionate. "If you vote to sell, all of this disappears. Not just the farm, but the connections it creates, the knowledge it preserves, the community it supports." Hannah watched the board members' faces. Some looked moved, others remained impassive. Walter Prescott was nodding slightly, while Elizabeth Chen's expression was unreadable. Victoria stepped forward. "My brother speaks eloquently about sentiment, but business requires looking forward, not backward. The trust was established to maximize returns for future generations of Everbrooks. Development is clearly the wisest financial choice. The trust was established to preserve our family legacy," Lucas countered, "and this farm is that legacy." As the board members dispersed to explore the festival, Hannah approached Lucas. "How do you think it's going?" "Hard to say," he admitted. "Walter is on our side. I think Elizabeth is on the fence. The others—" He shrugged. "We've done all we can. Now we wait for tomorrow's vote." Throughout the afternoon, Hannah noticed Lucas making a point to introduce the board members to workers, local vendors, and community partners. She followed his example, sharing her knowledge and experience whenever opportunities arose. As the day wore on, dark clouds began gathering on the horizon. The weather forecast had predicted clear skies, but nature had other plans. By late afternoon, the first raindrops began to fall. "We need to move the closing ceremony to the main tent," Lucas instructed, efficiency taking over. Hannah helped coordinate the transition, making sure vendors were protected and guests were directed to covered areas. What began as a light shower quickly intensified. Rain pounded the canvas tents and winds whipped the banners. Despite the downpour, most festival attendees stayed, huddling under whatever shelter they could find. In the midst of the chaos, Hannah spotted Victoria speaking urgently to Elizabeth Chen and two other board members under the protection of a large umbrella. Their expressions were serious, and Victoria looked almost pleased despite the weather disaster. Before Hannah could approach them, there was a shout from the direction of the east fields. Jim came running, drenched and breathless. "Lucas, the irrigation channel is overflowing. Water's heading straight for the new seedlings." Lucas immediately shifted into action mode. "Get every available worker. We need sandbags at the north end of the channel to divert the flow." "I'll help," Hannah said without hesitation. Lucas looked at her gratefully. "Round up anyone you can find. I'll get the equipment." As Hannah gathered workers, she noticed the board members watching curiously. To her surprise, Walter Prescott rolled up his sleeves. "Where can I help?" he asked. Hannah blinked in surprise. "You want to help?" "I was a farmer before I was a businessman," Walter said with a wry smile. "I remember what flash floods can do." Within minutes, a team had assembled. Under Lucas's direction, they filled sandbags and created a barrier to protect the vulnerable fields. Everyone worked together, seasonal hands, department managers, even some festival attendees who volunteered. Rain soaked them all equally as they passed bags down the line, shouted instructions, and waded through mud. Hannah found herself working alongside Lucas, their shoulders touching, as they positioned heavy sandbags. Despite the dire situation, she felt strangely exhilarated. This was what farming was about, fighting alongside nature even when it turned against you. She looked up once to see three of the board members, including Elizabeth Chen, watching intently from beneath umbrellas. Victoria stood apart, her designer outfit pristine, a slight frown on her face. After an hour of intense work, the immediate danger had passed. The makeshift barrier held, diverting the water away from the newly planted fields. Exhausted but triumphant, the workers began returning to the festival grounds. Lucas, drenched and mud-covered, addressed the small crowd. "Thank you all. You've just saved next season's first crop. He looked at each person in turn. This is what Everbrook is, people coming together when it matters most. Hannah noticed Elizabeth Chen approach Lucas. They spoke quietly for a moment before Elizabeth nodded and walked away. Lucas's expression gave nothing away. As the rain finally eased, festival visitors began heading home. Workers started the massive cleanup effort. Hannah was helping dismantle one of the displays when Victoria approached her. Quite the dramatic finale, Victoria said, somehow still looking immaculate despite the weather. My brother always did have a flair for theatrics. There was nothing theatrical about saving those fields, Hannah replied. Victoria studied her thoughtfully. You really do care about this place, don't you? Even knowing my brother lied to you from the beginning. I care about good farmland and the people who work it, Hannah said. And yes, I care about your brother too, despite his deception. Interesting. Victoria tapped her perfectly manicured nails against her arm. What if I told you there's a way you could save Everbrook and secure your own future at the same time? Hannah's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? The trust provisions my brother is so worried about, Victoria explained. Control reverts to the board because Lucas is unmarried at 30. But if he were to marry before the vote tomorrow... She let the implication hang in the air. Hannah stared at her. Are you suggesting I'm merely pointing out facts? Victoria said smoothly. Lucas clearly has feelings for you. You clearly care about the farm. A marriage would solve everyone's problems, except yours, Hannah noted. Victoria's smile tightened. I'm a realist. If my plan fails, I'll adjust accordingly. Before Hannah could respond, Victoria walked away, leaving her stunned and confused. Was Victoria actually suggesting she marry Lucas to save the farm? The very idea was absurd. They had only known each other for a few months. Even if there were real feelings between them, marriage was an extreme solution. And yet if it could save Everbrook... Hannah spotted Lucas by the main tent, talking with Walter Prescott. His clothes were muddy, his hair plastered to his head from the rain, but his eyes were bright with the satisfaction of averting disaster. This was the man she had come to know. Not the wealthy landowner, but the farmer who would wade through mud to protect his crops. As she watched him, Lucas looked up, and their eyes met across the rain-soaked festival grounds. Something passed. Between them, something Hannah wasn't quite ready to name. Tomorrow would bring the board's vote, and a decision Hannah never expected to face. The morning of the board vote dawned clear and bright, as if the previous day's storm had never happened. Hannah woke early after a restless night, Victoria's suggestion echoing in her mind. Marriage to save Everbrook. The idea was absurd, desperate, and yet she couldn't stop thinking about it. She dressed quickly and headed to the dining hall, where the atmosphere was tense. Workers spoke in hushed tones, everyone aware that today's vote would determine their futures. Hannah grabbed a coffee and sat alone, trying to sort through her conflicted feelings. Martha joined her, sliding onto the bench with her own coffee. Big day, she said simply. Hannah nodded. What time is the vote? 10 o'clock in the main house. Martha studied Hannah's face. Lucas was looking for you earlier, said he needed to speak with you before the meeting. Hannah's heart jumped. Did he say what about? No, but he seemed nervous. More than usual, I mean. Martha hesitated. Hannah, I don't mean to pry, but is there something going on between you two? It's complicated, Hannah replied, which was certainly true. I'll go find him. She found Lucas in the east field, standing by the sandbag barrier they had built together during the storm. He was staring out at the land, lost in thought, and didn't hear her approach. Lucas, she said softly. He turned, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Hope and fear battled in his eyes. Hannah, he said, I'm glad you came. I wanted to talk to you before the board meeting. Victoria came to see me yesterday, Hannah said, deciding to be direct. After the storm, she told me about the marriage clause in the trust. Lucas's eyes widened. She what? She suggested that if you were married before the vote, you'd retain control of Everbrook. Hannah watched his face carefully. Is that true? Lucas ran a hand through his hair. Yes. The provision states that if I'm married, I maintain majority, Control regardless of my age. He looked at her intently. But Hannah, I would never ask you to... Would it save the farm? She interrupted. Technically, yes, but... And the jobs of everyone who works here? Lucas sighed. Yes, but Hannah, marriage isn't something to enter into lightly, especially not for business reasons? Hannah finished for him. Isn't that what people like you do all the time? Marry for advantage, for connections, for property? A flash of hurt crossed Lucas's face. Is that really what you think of me? Hannah immediately regretted her words. No, she admitted. That's not fair. You've proven you're nothing like that. They stood in silence for a moment, the morning sun warming the dew-covered fields around them. Why would Victoria even suggest this? Lucas finally asked. It goes against everything she's been working for. Hannah had been wondering the same thing. I think she's hedging her bets. If she loses the vote, she at least wants to be on good terms with whoever controls Everbrook's future. Lucas shook his head in disbelief. She's always playing angles, even when we were kids. Tell me about growing up here, Hannah said, genuinely curious. What was it like being an Everbrook? Lucas's expression softened with memory. Wonderful, and terrible at the same time. My father believed in hard work. From the time we could walk, Victoria and I were expected to help with age-appropriate chores. I loved it, being outside, watching things grow, working with the animals. And Victoria hated every minute, Lucas said with a sad smile. She took after our grandfather, more interested in boardrooms than barns. When she was 18, she left for business school and hardly ever came back. Dad was disappointed, but he understood. Not everyone is meant for this life. But you were, Hannah said. Lucas nodded. I never wanted anything else. Dad and I worked side by side every day. He taught me everything, not just about farming, but about treating people right, about being a steward of the land. His voice grew quieter. When he died, it nearly broke me. The only thing that kept me going was knowing I had to protect what he'd built. Hannah felt a deep connection to his words. That's how I felt when my father died, like I had to carry on for him. Somehow. Exactly. Lucas met her eyes. Hannah, I need to tell you something. Something I should have said earlier. Hannah's heart raced. What is it? Lucas began, but was interrupted by Martha calling from the path. Lucas! The board members are gathering. The meeting starts in 20 minutes. Lucas closed his eyes briefly in frustration. I'll be right there. He turned back to Hannah. We need to finish this conversation. Will you wait for me after the vote? Hannah nodded. I'll be here. The board meeting was held in the formal dining room of the main house. Hannah wasn't invited, of course, but she wasn't the only one anxiously awaiting the outcome. Workers gathered in small groups around the farm, speculation running wild about what would happen. Hannah found herself pacing near the garden, too, nervous to sit still. She was joined by Eleanor, who brought her a cup of tea. Drink this, the housekeeper said kindly. It'll calm your nerves. Have you heard anything? Hannah asked. Eleanor shook her head. The doors are closed, but I've worked for this family long enough to know that nothing is certain until the final vote is cast. What was Lucas's father like? Hannah asked suddenly. Lucas speaks of him with such admiration. Eleanor's face softened with memory. Richard Everbrook was a good man. Stubborn as they come, but fair. He built this place from a modest family farm into what it is today, but never forgot what matters, the land and the people who work it. Lucas is like him, Hannah observed. Very much so. Eleanor studied Hannah's face. You care for him, don't you? Beyond concern for the farm. Hannah felt her cheeks warm. It's complicated. Love usually is, Eleanor replied with a knowing smile. Nearly 2 hours passed before the board meeting ended. Hannah saw the members leaving the main house, their expressions giving nothing away. Victoria emerged last, her face tight with controlled emotion. When she spotted Hannah in the garden, she walked directly toward her. Well, farm girl, Victoria said, her voice brittle. It seems you've made quite an impression. Before Hannah could ask what she meant, Victoria continued. The vote was 3-4 against the sale. Relief flooded through Hannah. Everbrook is safe? For now, Victoria conceded. Elizabeth Chen switched her vote at the last minute. said something about the community value outweighing the potential financial returns. She shook her head in disbelief. Years of planning undone by one rainstorm and a bunch of muddy farmers working together. Despite Victoria's bitterness, Hannah couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best investments can't be calculated on a spreadsheet. Victoria raised an eyebrow. You sound like my brother. She straightened her designer jacket. Speaking of whom, he's looking for you, said something about an important conversation that was interrupted. Hannah's pulse quickened. Where is he? In our father's study. Victoria turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I misjudged you, Hannah Cole. I thought you were after my brother's money, but you actually care about this dirt farm as much as he does. It's not dirt, Hannah replied. It's life. Victoria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Well, whatever happens between you and Lucas, I suspect we'll be seeing each other at family gatherings. Try not to track mud on my designer shoes. With that, she walked away toward her waiting car. Hannah made her way to the main house, her mind racing. The farm was safe. The workers' jobs were secure. But what about her own future? Her seasonal contract would end in a few weeks. She had no claim to Everbrook beyond the work she'd done here. And what about Lucas? What had he wanted to tell her? Before they were interrupted, Eleanor met her at the door. He's waiting for you, she said with a smile. Go on in. The study was a warm, wood-paneled room lined with agricultural books and family photographs. Lucas stood by the window, looking out at the field stretching to the horizon. He turned when Hannah entered, his face breaking into a wide smile. We won, he said simply. Hannah nodded. Victoria told me. Congratulations. It wasn't just me, Lucas replied. It was everyone. The workers who showed the board what Everbrook really is. The local vendors who explained what the farm means to the community. He took a step toward her. And you, Hannah. Walter told me your conversation at dinner made him absolutely certain he was voting the right way. I just told the truth, Hannah said, about what happens when family farms disappear. Lucas closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. Before we were interrupted, I was trying to tell you something important. Hannah looked up at him, her heart pounding. What is it? When I realized Victoria had told you about the marriage clause, I was horrified, Lucas began. The idea of you thinking I might want to marry you just to save the farm. But you do want to save the farm, Hannah pointed out. Yes, but not that way. Not by trapping you in a marriage of convenience. Lucas's eyes were intense. Hannah, these past months getting to know you, first as Luke the farmhand, then as Lucas the owner, have shown me what's been missing in my life. Someone who understands this land the way I do. Someone who sees its value beyond dollars and cents. Hannah's breath caught. Lucas, let me finish, he said gently. I lied about who I was, and I'll always regret that. But everything else, every conversation we had, every moment we shared working the fields, watching the sunset, fighting the storm, that was real. I was always my true self with you, even when I wasn't using my real name. Hannah felt tears, threatening. I know that now. The thing is, Lucas continued, his voice growing softer, somewhere along the way I fell in love with you, Hannah Cole. Not because you could save Everbrook, but because you understand why it's worth saving. Hannah's heart seemed to stop, then race forward. I fell in love with you too, she admitted. Even when I was angry about the deception, I couldn't stop caring about the man I got to know. Lucas smiled, bringing his hand to her cheek. I don't want to marry you to save the farm. But someday, if you'll give me the chance to prove myself worthy of your trust again, I'd like to marry you because I can't imagine my life without you. Hannah leaned into his touch. I'd like that, she whispered. Someday. His lips met hers in a gentle kiss that held both promise and healing. When they pulled apart, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. So what happens now? Hannah asked. Well, Lucas replied with a smile, your seasonal contract ends in 3 weeks, but I happen to know the owner is looking for a permanent farm manager to replace Henry, someone with experience, dedication, and a deep love for the land. Hannah's eyes widened. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a future, Lucas corrected, here at Everbrook, working alongside me to make this place even better. What do you say?" Hannah looked past him to the fields beyond the window, fields that had nearly become construction sites, fields that now represented not just Lucas's legacy, but potentially her own. "I say yes," she replied, her heart full. "To the job and to the future." Lucas pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her as if he'd never let go. Outside the window, the late afternoon sun bathed Everbrook's fields in golden light, fields that would continue to grow, to produce, to sustain. Fields that had brought two people together despite lies and family conflict. Fields that had healed Hannah's broken heart and given her a new beginning. Fields that would, someday, be home. 6 months later, Hannah stood on the back porch of the main house, now her house too, watching as workers prepared for spring planting. The winter had been a time of change and growth. As farm manager, she had implemented new sustainable practices, expanded the organic program, and even started a training initiative for young farmers who wanted to learn but couldn't afford land. Of their own, Lucas joined her on the porch, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Surveying your kingdom?" he teased. "Our kingdom," Hannah corrected, leaning back against him. "I was just thinking about how much has changed since I first arrived here, with nothing but a duffel bag and determination." "You still have the determination," Lucas noted, kissing her cheek. "Now you just have a lot more luggage." Hannah laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "Are you complaining about how many books I moved into your library?" "Our library," he corrected with a smile. "And no, I love that you've made this place your home." Hannah touched the simple engagement ring on her finger, a recent addition that still felt new and wonderful. Their wedding was planned for after the harvest, a celebration that would include all of Everbrook's workers and the entire community. "Have you heard from Victoria?" Hannah asked. Lucas's sister had been surprisingly civil at Christmas, her first visit since the board vote. "She sent an investment proposal," Lucas replied. "Wants to help fund the expansion of our organic produce." "Line, says there's good money in it." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "She's interested in farming now." "She's interested in profit," Lucas clarified, "but she's finding ways to make it that don't involve selling the land. So I consider that progress." A truck pulled up the driveway and Martha waved from the driver's seat. "Seed delivery," she called out. "I should go help," Hannah said, giving Lucas a quick kiss before heading down the porch steps. Lucas watched her walk across the yard, confidence in every step. When she had first arrived at Everbrook, she had been running from loss, searching for a new beginning. Now she moved like someone who knew exactly where she belonged. As Hannah directed the unloading of the precious seeds that would soon be planted in Everbrook's rich soil, she caught Lucas watching her and smiled. Her father had always told her, "That good land finds its proper caretaker eventually." He would have been proud to see her now, not just surviving but thriving. In the distance, the east field where they had built sandbags together during the storm was now prepared for planting. New life would soon emerge from that soil, continuing the cycle that had drawn both Hannah and Lucas to farming in the first place. The land endured, and so would they, together in the fields of her heart. The end.